Good afternoon. You're listening to Cannabis Corner on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and NewHavenIndependent.org. We're also streaming live video on Facebook and YouTube. Just go to your Facebook page and look us up, or hit C first to see and hear all the great programs that we have here on WNHHLP. And Cannabis Corner is also streaming live on the Greenhaven Media Facebook page and ProCannabisMedia.com. Welcome, everybody. It is Monday, October 20th, 2025. Welcome to Cannabis Corner. I'm your host, Joe LaChance, Joe the Weed Guy, and I am, of course, joined here by the one and only Uncle Lou, Farmer Lou. How are you, my friend?
You're doing well, brother. Doing well. Another beautiful Monday. Kind of getting ready to go through the day. Had a really good morning, health and wellness wise. So just when you get those good days, you get out for your walk. You get a nice little workout in, and kind of feel like at least health wise things are hitting on all cylinders, right?
That's right. You get your day off to a good start, and at least then you never know what's going to happen after that, right?
Right. Exactly.
But at least you're in a good frame of mind to get it going. But
yeah. So now it's time to do the radio show. Get through our little housekeeping. I'm really excited about today's guests. We have some really awesome people. So let's push through. Brother.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Metatron Homegrown, Gabe. That's over there. With 2 locations in Meriden and Orange, 626 East Main Street in Meriden, 185 Boston Post Road in Orange. They will be having a big grand opening for Orange on November 1st. That's 2 weeks from today, and there's going to be a lot of cool things, glass blowers. They're going to bring down a pizza truck, all kinds of great stuff. I know I will be there, and a lot of great, people that we know from the community. So we're hoping to have everybody come down. That'll be November 1st down at Metatron Homegrown. And Gabe will be on next week to tell us exactly what they got going on. But with harvest time, it's time to start either thinking about next year's grow or getting your harvest cured and all ready to use. So go on and visit Metatron Homegrown. All right, couple other things. Big event this weekend, the Burn and Learn Harvest Festival. Down over at the Holy Ghost Park. Make sure you check that out. That is this Saturday from 12 to 7. Got some great bands. It's kind of a Grateful Dead themed show, but it's obviously the Harvest Fest. So bring your harvest and let's share it with everybody. So that is this Saturday. And of course, if you're in the Massachusetts area, if you decide to take a little ride, you can always head up to Hexpo, which we had Bobby on last week. And that is up there in Seekonk, Massachusetts. So that ought to be a good thing, too. So we got a couple things going on this weekend. It's fall, a lot of festivals. Should be a good time. But I'm kind of excited about our guest coming on, Mr. Josh Elliott, who's a friend of the show. He's been on quite a few times and always been a great supporter of cannabis and moving forward with cannabis, not only legalization, but moving the industry forward and progressing. So we wanted to bring Josh on because he's going on an exciting new chapter in his career. Josh grew up in Connecticut and attended high school in Hamden and graduated with a BA in sociology. Josh, do you want me to go through this or do you want to just start talking?
Let's get to the meat of it, right?
Let's go. Yeah. We all know you. All right. Josh Elliott, state representative from the city of Hamden or there town. I don't know whether it's town area, right? It's a town. You've been a state representative for quite a while over there, representing them very, very well. Mm-hmm. And always been a big proponent, good friend of the show, but also a good friend of the cannabis industry from the beginning, even in the medical days. Big proponent of legalizing, getting a good adult use cannabis industry going, but also progressing it as we go. And besides, that's psilocybin. So we know that you've been a big friend of us.
You know what, Joe? I'll
Yeah.
actually add a little bit more onto that because Josh Elliott represents my kids. He is their well, when everything was going on, they live in Hamden. Big proponent of helping education, big gentleman helping small businesses, not
Hmm.
just in the cannabis space, but has also touched down in, the entrepreneurial spaces and really a member of the community, so that's a big thing, not just the cannabis community, but the Hamden
Yes,
community as
very,
well.
very true.
So,
You've had a store there for a long time, so you've always been embedded in your community, not just one of those people who comes in and represents. You are actually a part of your community.
That's
Lou,
right.
you're absolutely right. You have the store, so you do service the community. And that's what I like about you, Josh. You seem to be, you have your heart in the right place, and you've got a
Trying.
you moving forward, moving on from being a state representative, and you're taking on the big dog. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about what made you decide to make the jump. Was it certain things you were seeing in government? Obviously, you're on the inside there, so you know a little bit
So
more than we do.
I don't know if you guys know, but you all buried the lead. You didn't even say what I'm doing.
No,
I
I want
am.
you to. This is the thing.
All right. I am challenging the governor. I'm challenging Ned Lamont. He
right.
is looking at running for a third term. He would be the second governor in our state's history to serve a third term, the first one being Roland, who, of course, went to prison early in his third term. And he, of course, is totally unwilling to ask the wealthy to pay their fair share, among a host of other policy differences between the two of us. So this is not a personal thing. I am a very policy heavy candidate generally. I'm trying to talk a little bit more about things like, encroaching fascism, intergenerational change, and people holding on to these seats for too long. But when it comes down to it, the reason I do this work is because I think that there's a lot of policy work that needs to be done in Connecticut, and it's quite honestly very difficult under this governor. So I am mounting this bid. I've been working it for the last couple of months. 12-hour days all around the state. I was in about 10 different locations over the past weekend, 5 different rallies, 5 different events yesterday, and it's just go, 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 and see if this thing can catch fire the way that Mom Donnie did in New York. And we'll see if some of that energy translates here, if people are sort of ready for the state to do big things, because I can tell you that the legislature is ready. We have historic highs. We have 102 of 151 Democrats elected to the House of Representatives. We have 25 of the 26 are Democrats in the Senate. And right now, we can't get big things done for one reason and one reason alone. And that is our governor.
And he is a Democrat. It's
He's a
not
Democrat.
like it's
He's a
not
Democrat.
like. But I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying because we all know Ned Lamont comes from a business background. We don't have to get into all that. He's not a young man. This was his third try at trying to get in.
Mm-hmm.
He's had 2 terms to prove himself and make
Mm-hmm.
this state. I don't want to say profitable, but more in the black than it was
Yep.
when we started. And we really haven't made much progress in a lot of areas,
That's right.
especially financially. We
Mm-hmm.
can even just look at the finances. You're handed an industry. Now, under Ned Lamont, and of course, this is a cannabis themed radio show, but
Sure.
you were handed an industry that could have generated a lot of tax revenue
Right.
for the state if done properly.
Mm-hmm.
And they totally screwed it up and handed it over to monopolies. And we'll get into that. I know you probably were watching from the sidelines, biting your
Mm-hmm.
fingernails and wishing that were heads of some of these committees or, you
I
know,
know.
so I'm sure because you're more of a grassroots guy. So, and even with that, and with a lot of other things, money they've been getting and big contracts they've signed with corporations and stuff, we're still way in the red financially. We're still having problems getting healthcare out to the right people.
Right.
We're still behind.
Right.
It's not like Ned brought us forward in any way. The first thing he wanted to do was bring in tolls,
Yeah. Well, my feeling about cannabis and bringing money into the state was I was always really hesitant for that to be the main or one of the main arguments, because
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the reason for me to legalize and regulate.
Me neither.
The
Me
reason
neither.
was because of the decades and decades long war on drugs, which is really, for the most part, the war on black and brown bodies. And then also, it was just, if this thing doesn't hurt anybody, then why are we locking people up? And it was a matter of expense. It was a matter of how are we using our resources? And we were using our resources very poorly in the war on drugs, because ultimately, what people really are concerned about are issues of addiction, and they are concerned about issues of crime, and
Right.
crime that affects other people. And we could make anything a crime essentially, and so we chose the ownership of or the sale of drugs to be one of those things. And it wasn't a system that worked. So we were finally able to turn that corner. But I was always worried about the argument of we need to be making money off of this.
And which is where they were coming from, right?
Which is where a lot of people were coming from. And it was never going to be, for me, a salve for our budgetary problems in Connecticut, because it's a $28 billion a year budget that we're working with. And we're talking about, $50 million a year that we'll take in from cannabis revenue. Certainly something that we could use to help invest in communities that were disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, and ways that we could, put this back into the economy. But it was never going to be a fix-all. So
Right.
I think that people's perceptions and expectations were maybe heightened by the fact that this was really used as a way to get this bill over the finish line. And so it's a matter of coming away from that expectation now, and seeing what we can do to make the market now really just to succeed. And I'm going to guess that you would agree with me that the market really isn't quite there, that people are still going to Massachusetts. They're still going to other states to purchase. And that's because of all the regulatory hurdles that we put into place, and the unwillingness for us as a legislature, as a state, to really create and pursue a crafts market in a way that for beer, we have a craft market. And
Right.
there really shouldn't be any significant distinction between the two.
That's my point. I always said that too, and I would go right up to them and say, we could just make it like the craft beer market. We could, and I think what happened was whoever the people were in charge of putting these bills through and writing them were greatly affected by the existing lobby of the existing producers.
So
Yeah,
I
go.
also have just looking at it from like the business side, just in general. Um, the small craft beer business
Mm-hmm.
is still in the high hundred thousands and $1 million in revenue. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So, when we talk about the craft cannabis industry, sometimes everybody looks at it from the scope of which where they would operate it from, or where they would look and see, because we can kind of say our micro license is a craft industry, but it wasn't open to everybody, where
Mm-hmm.
somebody else in another state would say our micro license is the largest license that state offers.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I say, and especially when Joe and I have the conversation, when we talk about the craft market, we're thinking like 1,500 square foot places where people can have access at a more reasonable rate,
Mm-hmm.
and something like that. Because, when we speak with legislators or we speak with policymakers, they also believe the craft industry is similar to like what the craft beer industry is, because the craft beer industry is large facilities, like Two Roads is a beautiful, large,
Sure.
wonderful facility you can go to. New England Brewery is a beautiful, large facility that you go into, but they're making thousands upon thousands upon thousands of units.
The scale is so different. That's right.
Right, right. So
Well,
that's
the
all. Like
process is
sometimes
different too. I mean, it takes a lot more to bigger equipment to brew that amount of beer, where it takes less space to grow that amount of cannabis.
yeah, that was all. We were just having the nice conversation, which I love, because that's how rules are made. Conversations open up, and it gives people things to think about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that, having the conversation with Josh as he moves forward, I know he's familiar with the idea of the craft industry as a
Mm-hmm.
small scale, But then there's some legislators when you say craft, and they're like, "Oh yeah, 100,000 square foot is craft," and they just
Yeah.
don't understand. They don't
Right.
understand that difference. So now I want to get back to kind of talking about your challenge. It's a big challenge, and it's doable. And I think that sometimes people forget that the regular folk want to voice as well.
That's right.
Yes, we're in Connecticut, and yes, there's a huge disparity between a lot of communities. Some are very, very, very
Yeah.
wealthy, and then 5 blocks away, you have a very low income urban area
Hmm.
solely become because the state zoned it and kind of designed it that way because you can't have profitable businesses in Fairfield County if
Hmm.
you have to pay everybody $25-$30 minimum wage. So now you have individuals coming from, we'll just use like Norwalk and Stanford. We have individuals coming from smaller parts of Norwalk or Stafford or New Haven to work in the more wealthier stations of like the Shoreline, Fairfield, or the Gold Coast kind of areas. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the wealth disparity is still so close that it's a couple blocks away from each other.
I
And
mean, our governor is classic Connecticut.
Yeah,
When
I
he
gotta look.
runs,
Yeah, he's my age, right? And
yep.
I can tell you right now, this Connecticut is not Ned Lamont's Connecticut. It is not the same demographic that we grew up in, but him living down in that area and coming from that area still has the idea that it is. But
I
you
mean,
and I both know over the last 40 years, Connecticut has become much more of a diverse
right,
place.
right. I'll put it this way too: is in terms of the governors being able to hold a perspective that is different than his own or be able to empathize. This is a person who comes from intergenerational banking wealth, a person who makes $55 million a year in passive income, money that's, just goes right to his bank account. He spends
Right.
$25 million every time there's a cycle that for him to win this seat. And then ultimately what he does is he then vetoes things like the housing bill. He vetoes things like the striking workers bill. He ensures that there's no conversation that we can have about asking the wealthy to pay their fair share. A statistic that I tell people all the time is that the top 4,500 income earners in our state pay no more than 8% of their income to state and local taxes, while the bottom 1.2 million, or a third of our state, pay a minimum of 20%. And we
oof,
have big, big
Wow.
problems in our state in terms of affordability. But if you're talking about what are the cost drivers, we have childcare, we have healthcare, we have transportation, we have housing, we have energy, we have food, and there's limited things that the government can really do to change the costs of these things because these are all private markets. But what can we do? We can have immediate impact on how we tax people. And if you can afford to pay 20% of your income as a middle class, working class family, then you can certainly afford that if you're ultra wealthy. But we're actually asking you to pay less as a percentage, and that's because of our over reliance on the property tax. And the governor just does not want to have this conversation. So he'll talk about things like making these small tax cuts at the income brackets in the middle level. But the problem is that at the town level, and I don't know what it's like for you guys where you are, but in Hamden, which is similar as across the state, every 5 years we have a reevaluation. And what happens is,
Right.
especially after this pandemic, is our residential rates went up by 55%, our commercial went up by 30%. And so people that are literally living outside of the state are getting tax cuts. People that are living in town on disposable on income that isn't increasing every year,
Right.
on static income, they're paying more. They're paying $1,000 to $3,000 more a year, and so we can't really say at the state level that we're actually giving people tax cuts because we aren't sending enough money back to municipalities. And so I could riff on this for the next 30 minutes, but
Right.
I,
Right.
I've been doing this work for a decade now. I actually got elected before Ned got elected, and I'm deputy
Yeah. Yeah.
speaker,
You were
and
in
I'm
when. Yes.
and I'm
Exactly.
and I'm caucus co-chair, and I've been helping Democrats get these huge majorities, and still, even with those huge majorities, and people wonder like, why can't Democrats do things? And right now, there's one reason, and that is the governor. That is why we
Right.
can't do big things. That is why we can't fix the tax rates.
you
Yeah.
are
Well.
100% correct about that because this is a state that shouldn't have any issues passing anything on the Democratic side,
That's right.
realistically. And you've made a couple good points, and we've spoken about these in places and they get heard, but I would love for at least to go through it one more time. What are some of those key items that have been vetoed? Which means, and our we have some listeners that are a little bit
Yeah, they
more
actually made it to
abreast.
the legislator, to the desk.
Exactly. And then
Yes.
some people who know more. So just if you go through that. So he physically vetoed.
There were two vetoes this year, and
Yes.
I want to say before I even say what those two vetoes were, we don't even, as the public, know what the governor was killing. I know as a legislator, and it's also why you're going to see over the months that the governor is not going to get more than a handful of endorsements from people in the legislature because they see firsthand the way that he kills bills. And even with things like paid family and medical leave and minimum wage, things that he wants to tout as his wins, he watered down minimum wage as much as possible. He
Mm-hmm.
watered down paid family and medical leave as much as
Mm-hmm.
possible. He was really fighting these wins, but now he wants to take ownership of them, which to me feels disingenuous as somebody who is fighting for as big a win as possible. But when we're looking at specifically the bills that he vetoed, it was the housing bill and it was the unemployment insurance benefits for striking workers. The housing bill had no mandatory minimum parking requirements. It had commercial to residential as a right. It had transit-oriented development. It was all carrot and no stick. And his organization, the people that work with him, his policy people, were involved every step of the way through the legislative process to craft this bill. But as soon as we passed it, and this was the first time we've had major housing reform that we passed in our state, the governor listened to a very small group of people out of Fairfield County called 169 Strong, and basically said, we're going to veto this bill because it's not good politically. But he didn't say it wasn't good based on policy because he was unwilling to actually go to the public and say what was in this bill. But that's because he didn't know what was in it. And if you look at the press conference, he was constantly asking his staff, what was this? What was in this bill? And so he vetoed a bill purely on politics. And we know that we have major affordability issues in Connecticut when it comes to housing. It's getting harder and harder for people to live in the state, specifically because of housing. And the governor vetoed that bill. The next bit is the unemployment benefits for striking workers. This bill basically said that if you are part of a private union and you have been on strike for 2 weeks out, then you will be eligible to a percentage of unemployment benefits of the unemployment insurance. And basically, first of all, we know that 99% of strikes end within 2 weeks.
Right.
Everybody wants to come to a deal. But this provides more ability for labor to withstand because capital can withstand for a much longer time than people that are relying on these paychecks that are no longer coming in. And so what we were saying as a state, and this also happened, by the way, I think it was Minnesota, but don't quote me on the exact state. This happened in the same year that another state passed this bill, a much more conservative state, because what we're seeing is a lack of labor power in Connecticut because we have a really, really strong organizational base. And we actually picked up 6 seats that were all labor backed and lost 2 that weren't last year for the House. But the problem is the governor just comes from a different world. And he just doesn't see the same reason that we in the legislature do to protect working families, to protect people that are in labor. So this was the second time he's vetoed this bill. And it was very modest. We expect it to be no more than a million or 2 million on average a year, which is what, 0.001% of the budget. It's vanishingly small. And he couldn't even be bothered to help labor there because his perception was that this was in some ways an attack on business, which I just vehemently disagree with.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell where his mind's at. And I got to tell you, a lot of people have been talking, even in the Democratic Party, that we need younger leadership in general in this state. Do you know what I mean? We need people with new ideas. This has been, we went from Malloy to Lamont. There wasn't a hell of a lot of difference. They both came from the same place, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the state has basically been run by, I don't want to say that demographic for a long time. And it's time, and I think you can see it in the country too, for a little bit of some new ideas. Maybe there's different ways to do things. Maybe we should think more about the people than about big business, which is part of my complaint with the cannabis industry. And we were talking about it, the craft industry and all that. Had they set up the licensing structure different, and had they not kowtowed and catered to the big corporations, we could have had a really nice, good, profitable, prosperous cannabis industry here. But what are we seeing? Dispensaries are shutting down. People are complaining about the lack of products in the dispensaries. So what could have been something really nice turned out to just be another, like you say, a sellout to big business again.
Yes. And so I do have to go in about a minute. So I'll make my final pitch to your audience, which is to say that check me out on joshforct.com, joshforct.com. That's where you can check me out. And for this campaign to be successful, I need to raise $350,000 because I'm using the public ramp. I don't have a lot of millionaire friends, and I don't have that kind of money to put in to run a campaign that's competitive. But what we do have is a really strong financing program that will get me $3 million if I raise that 350. And people can even just contribute as low as $5, but the max is 320. So that is what I'll leave people with. And
they can sign up for your email list there.
Yes.
That's how I knew you were running for governor. I've been getting
Exactly.
your emails. Josh for CT. There is a year to go, and this is why we're having you on now. We want to build a groundswell, just like you said, grassroots. Start now. Get a good support behind you. So I'm sending this message out to the cannabis industry. Check out Josh for CT. If you can send him $5, if you can send him $10, do that. Let's at least get him into the primary, and let's get this thing rolling. Let's get some. Let's get net out.
There we go. All right, guys, I gotta go.
Josh, thank you so much.
You got it. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, Kimora should be on in a minute. I just texted her, but that's good. That's good to know for me anyway, Lou.
Gotta do it.
That's somebody who's been a really good friend of cannabis. There's Kimora, is finally running for governor, and we might actually have a shot at reforming this industry. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yes, Kimora is on.
Beautiful. We just gotta push and change.
I know, because we want to keep the show rolling. Kimora, how are you? Kimora Harrington is the owner and founder of Kimora's Cultural Corner. Check them out. They are a great space for growing, caring, sharing, and loving. I can't say enough good things about them, but I'm going to let Kimora say it. So, Kimora, how are you?
I am wonderful. Well, I just had my birthday, so I'm 54. So
I wanted to say happy birthday. I saw that on there, and you had a big event this weekend, right?
Yeah, well, we had a big event for my birthday. This weekend, we had food fall in our laps, Joe. So, when we talk about our food giveaway, every Saturday at noon, we have our regular food giveaway. And then when the person who delivers it was there, she was like, hey, Yale, and she delivers for Haven's Harvest. So Yale has food. So I guess there was some banquet at Yale, and there were trays after trays after trays of prepared food. And then, guess what? Some Whole Foods warehouse needed to get rid of tons of frozen meat. So we ended up Saturday, which was supposed to be just a regular food giveaway, and the idea was we were going to be out of there by 2 p.m. And people were like, no more kinsing and all that other good stuff. We were there until after 8 p.m. giving away food and just having a big, huge impromptu community meal, because that's the way it goes.
Why not? That's how it goes.
Because I'm 54, because magic.
That's your birthday present, you see? You ended up having a party, and you didn't even
fed
plan
hundreds. We literally fed hundreds on this birthday.
Well, I heard a story like that before. Anyway, in some
that
other
dude
book.
with the fish and the bread, that guy, I don't know. They talk about him all the time. I don't get his weirdo freak hip.
And you shall receive, my love. That's it. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, man. I love that story. I love it. I'm so happy. I got to get up there sometime. But how are things going up there? As you know, there's a lot going on in the country, in Connecticut right now. A lot of elections going on. Is there an election going on in Hartford?
Right now we're in the getting ready, and people are just kind of looking and milling around. And I've had some interesting conversations, so I truly appreciate where I get to be in the state, because Miriam Khan has come to kind of talk about, what her seat is. So she's a state rep, what her seat is. And also Douglas McCrory's seat is probably coming.
Yeah, I would think. I think so. I think that one might be coming up.
Here's the things to pay attention to, right? So we got that, and lots of conversations around that with everything that goes with that, right? And you know that one gets us right to social equity, right? So so
Oh
you got
God,
that
yes.
nonsense.
How does,
And
how does how do you guys feel about that? What happened up there?
dude, okay, I have been working really hard at being just as honest as I can about this. And anyone who's been listening to me for 5 years, as you're watching what's happening, you're realizing, oh, Kimura has been talking about this specific seat, this
Yeah.
specific human being, and all of the people around them for at least 5 years now, right? And we've discussed this. I completely understand folks who don't have a real, and I'm not trying to be an asshole right now, right? But people who don't have a real grasp on the history of
Right.
keep out politics, right? Like how it goes. So Doug McCrory's seat was supposed to be the quell the black people make them happy seat since before he was there. The person who was in that seat before him was Sandy Cloud. He did that. Before that, we had this thing called the Black Governors. And I'm not going to go into that history lesson, but in this state, before black people really had the right to vote or were allowed to exercise that right in any real way, there's a strange group created called the Black Governors, where depending on who you're hearing about it, it was a wonderful, great way for the important black people to prove how important they were, or it was a way to divide and conquer and have a group of black people who kind of got their
Yeah,
needs
I
met,
get what you're saying. I got what you're
but
saying.
kind of made sure that the rest of us didn't get our needs met, right? So that's what this seat comes out of. I talk to so many, Joe, I know you do too. I love Connecticut, but our good, wonderful progressive liberals have a very rose tinted, lavender tinted, I don't know, lace covered tinted view on how things work, right? So they can point out to gerrymandering in Texas and they can see it because they see dumb people with maps and pens making lines, right? And they see the disparity in that. But they don't see, and I am in no way saying that Doug McCrory did not break the law. Okay? I'm in no way saying that the things that he's being accused of didn't happen. What I am saying is anyone in that seat, regardless, was going to do that. And the human being who got that seat would not get that seat if they weren't going to play that game, right? That's just exactly how it works.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And so Doug was the person, right? So now that seat can no longer belong to a black person. That seat, it is time. So just like gerrymandering is happening in other parts of the country, the elites, and I wish Josh was still here, right? I enjoyed listening to Josh, right? But the elites have decided that the black people don't need that anymore. But good white people in Greenwich, in Simsbury, in Avon wouldn't be able to see that, right? So if they saw the ridiculous crucifixion of a black man and then saw that seat try to be filled by a woman of color, but someone who's not a black person, they would see the discrepancy there, right? And they would, and as the black community screamed about what was really happening, people might hear it. But instead, this is, so I've been for 2 years, but before the first reporter called me, and like I think, as you know, before the feds made it to my door and I had to sit in my backyard and talk to FBI agents who look just like the FBI. But before we even got there, right? Before we got there, it was, dude, we need to start talking about this. We need to really talk about how, in order to serve our community, the money coming from the state, coming from the feds, has to go through this icky, ugly thing. And if we don't, we're going to get screwed, right? So we saw with Doug, the first one was the Blue Hill Civic Association. We're going to see many more nonprofits. We can, Joe, come up and smoke a piece with me at the fire because I really would love to go into more of the conspiracy stuff, but I also realize I'm not going to do too much of that.
Yeah,
right
we
now,
shouldn't do
right?
so much
We're not,
over the air, but we
yeah,
do know politics is dirty up there. So what you're saying is Doug McCrory was almost set up to fail.
yeah, yeah. They picked the right person. They picked the right person. You know, like if you need someone to steal candy, then you pick the fat kid who likes candy. You don't pick the vegan who doesn't touch refined sugar, right?
I got you.
So,
Okay, you said it in a nice way. Very good.
so we're dealing with it. We're dealing with it. And I'm hoping that we can navigate it. And I'm really hoping that more folks who work in the community can step up and do the ugly thing, the stuff that no one wants to say, which is we have been doing something that's immoral because that's the only way to get our needs met.
Right.
And we'll see if that happens.
Right. So yeah, I wish you. Yeah, I was going to tell you to come on a little earlier to talk to Josh, but he was in such a hurry. I wanted to let him get his piece out. But I think a lot of what he said about Ned Lamont and the current way they're running things, and I'm going to include William Tong in that too. I don't care.
Good.
But
Throw him up in there.
throw him up in there. It needs to change if Connecticut's going to move forward in any respectable way. Let's put it that way. In a lot of areas, and he was talking about the housing bill that Ned had vetoed, and about the unemployment for striking workers. But he said Ned has just been a roadblock in any way for programs or bills that would benefit, let's say, middle class, lower income people.
Mm-hmm.
And
his legislation, and I want to go to another place, right? Because a word I've been using a lot more, and I just realized I was using it, and now I'm using it intentionally, is statesman, because he's not a statesman. Right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much, and it's really easy. Politicians love to say, "Oh, there's only so much I can do. My hands are tied. There's only so much I can do." Well, I feel you, but you're a statesman, so lead. So go to the Small Business Association and tell them, weave them a beautiful story of how they can make Connecticut better in ways that you can't. But Ned Lamont isn't that. He's I'm not going to say sniveling. He is a fear-based rich man who needs to stay rich. And that's not who we need to have leading us, and definitely not in 2025.
You 100% hit it on the head. And that's where a lot of people may not even understand it, because if you don't know this, let's just make sure we make this very clear. Our current, and it is what it is, our current governor comes from generational wealth. So please understand, this is not just his grandfather, but his grandfather's grandfather's grandfather. And then where that generational wealth comes from is even just as atrocious.
With it's banking, right? It's money,
it's
right?
Banking. It's banking. So what did Connecticut get famous for during banking? We controlled all the money and the insurances for all the slave trips and slavery that was going on in the world.
Yes, we did.
So much money.
So much money.
Louis, that's where you hit it, right? Because when I talk about the ignorance and knowing our history, people can say generational wealth and not know how immoral that is, and discuss general wealth from banking and insurance and not know how immoral that is. Like, if you understand anything about how the money folks who make money off of money made money, then you would never vote for Ned Lamont. But the money folks control the narrative. And so here in Connecticut, we have huge wealth disparity. And do y'all know any poor people? Because I can tell you, other than a small select few, I know a lot of people who would never admit to being poor. I know people who, well, dude, because you're cool and you're real. You're not one of them, right? But there are so many people in Connecticut who need to hide any story of poverty, including the fact that they shop at Walmart now, right? Like, we know it gets down to as minutia as people have Target bags so they can put their Walmart shit in their Target bag to not appear as if.
It's Connecticut. It's Fairfield County. It's the Gold Coast. That's the appearance. Because I grew up in New York City and Brooklyn. What did I know of Connecticut? Tony Danza. You know what I mean? And so now I'm in Brooklyn, and I've got Spanish and Black families leaving school I went to school in Spanish Harlem, and they had some small upward mobility. So now they're leaving Brooklyn to go to Bridgeport or New Haven or Hartford, and you're like, oh, you guys made it. You know what I mean? And that was the concept we always knew. And that's that rose color, lavender color, to bring it back. But the people in charge have no idea what regular life is.
No, they don't. And you said it, those people are going to Bridgeport, Hartford, New Haven, Stamford. And you, as from a New Yorker, didn't realize the difference between Westport, Greenwich. They're not the same, that's what they were thinking of. Oh, Westport, Greenwich, No, Bridgeport in the 70s was not, it was not great.
It was another community, another urban area.
You know what I mean? And that's when you're coming from that part of the state, you tend to I don't want to say ignore it, but not be aware of what really goes on in the other areas. Let's put it that way.
And need to not be aware, like really need to go out of their way to not be aware. Like I will
Yeah.
say it for easy litmus test. Any person's like, why would anyone, I can't understand why anyone would. Oh, that's some Connecticut attitude. That is such a beautiful Connecticut. I am better than everyone else. I can't even see and begin to fathom. So you have all of these people who are up at the state capitol making decisions, cosplaying as if they're wealthy. Because we know a whole bunch of our state reps are not wealthy. Like,
Yep.
if you're wealthy, why
A lot
the
of them
hell?
have jobs.
Yeah, why bother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what we've got. But then pull this back down to social equity. Is a few weeks ago, the Social Equity Council had they had that a morning program, and I will say that from that program or before that program, Christina had her event a few months ago. And I actually, as soon as the event was over, I called her and told her, look, your event, whatever it was successful because the Social Equity Council would not have felt the need to prove as if they were doing something and pull together this amazing printing. Oh my God, the money that our state spent on the Social Equity Council, spending an hour and a half telling us how great they were. Our state spent all of the money that they should have. Don't worry, not a single expense was paid on the printing and the pens and the bag and the technology. Don't worry, your social equity dollars really went to.
Oh, well, that was like the whole scandal with them up at that convention.
Yes. So we were
I guess
there.
they haven't learned their lesson.
No, and I appreciate who I get to be, right? So I am well known in that room. You know, so like as Brandon was saying, and Kimura, we see you're here and we want to have, dude, okay, yeah, right? That is what it is. So people know who I am and they know my stance. But rich, want to be wealthy, want to be better than other people. Connecticut, even in that space, when they were coming to talk to me, it was, Kimura, we're going to make sure that everyone can get these licenses. Yeah, because, and it's this weird, like, sidling up to, you know, when people sidle up to you and stand, like, next to you, like, this weird way where we're both looking the same because we agree. It was this weird thing, right? But I had more than one person come up, like, hey, Kimura, yeah, like, we're going to make sure these white boys aren't going to get out. Like, we're going to make sure that we get in there. And I continue to scream, I really don't care. And on this one, I love my people who are growing weed, right? I love my people who are figuring out how to make money in that industry. I love them. That's not my lane. I really don't. That's not where the focus of my energy is, right? When people bring wonderful new freeze-dried cannabis to me and say, ooh, try this, I'm down and I love it. But my focus is figuring out how those social equity dollars can be translated from sitting in a pot that goes to a general nothing to actually doing what they're supposed to do and affect the communities that were disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. And I can tell you that I can't say absolutely everyone, but from the folks who I spoke to on that day when we were having that conversation and they knew daggone well why I was there, they couldn't, and you know that place where people feel like they know they need to talk to you, but they're not sure what to say? I watched it happen over and over, and I watched them come to me and could not come out of their small-minded, dumb, capitalistic way of thinking to talk to me about Kimura, equity, black people making money off of cannabis, as opposed to Kimura, Connecticut, taxation, whole lot of tax money. How can we use that tax money to make the world a better place, make Connecticut a better place, right? So the attitudes, beyond anything else, the attitudes are the problem, right? Because if everyone's attitude is success is wealth and having more money and more things than other people, then we can't move forward, and we're not going to move forward. We're just going to keep stewing this sick, crazy Connecticut nonsense.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. Connecticut seems to be more concerned about bringing in revenue
Joe.
than where they spend it. Go ahead,
Joe,
Luke.
so sorry. More, you couldn't be more correct. Right.
I know. You think I talk for the fun of it? I know I'm right.
When you sit, no, because I was not at that meeting for a reason. I have sat in every one of those meetings, and you just get dumbfounded by what actually happens. And I'm an owner, and I'm telling you, it is atrocious to sit in those rooms, to listen to, hey, this is social equity because I'm making money. Over and over and over. And as somebody who pays the taxes, the amount of money that's just going into the system and nobody's trying to hold that shit accountable is ridiculous. And then as you see these people, because now we're coworkers, we all own businesses together. So now you see, you're privy to personal, you know what I mean? And you're like, wow, congratulations, because we're no haters. But hey, you the hand can extend a little bit further. You should ask the questions that need to be asked instead of just being like, oh, I got my blinders on, I'm doing amazing, we're good, it's all working out. Where realistically it's not. And there are a couple, I'll give a shout out to those that are doing that, but it's not anything. They're making differences in their small communities and blessings on that. But in the grand scale of things, like you just said, where's the taxes going? It's ridiculous, because there's a lot of money being spent in the market without any converting over from people that are really going away. And I say a lot of money because I'm a regular folk, so a lot of money is a lot of money. You know what I mean? Like, some people are like, oh no, we only did $1.5 million this month. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money. I don't know what to tell you. What did we do for everybody else? So those rooms become, and as the program gets older and people are getting a little bit more successful, it's blatantly staring you in the face when you sit in those rooms now. So let's understand that Connecticut attitude extends right up into every one of those places, and it just gets atrocious. Like, I'm at the point that I just want to be out, and you're like, you work so hard to get at the top. So
what you're saying,
it's crazy.
Is because you guys are in the trenches, and I'm not really. What you're saying is the Social Equity Committee, which is supposed to be looking out for the interests of the social equity partners, is really only looking out again for the Connecticut money. And
that's been
interests.
Corrected. I apologize, Joe. That has 100% been corrected. The Social Equity Council is not out to make sure to protect the social equity applicants or social equity owners. The Social Equity Council is out to disseminate the monies that was received from our fees and then produce towards those social equity communities based upon their guidelines that, once again, are pretty skewed for what defines a social equity applicant or social equity community. You know what I mean? So,
well, let me ask you, Kimura, as somebody who's down there, have you seen any of that money? It's been how many years now? It's 4 years. We've had.
I don't know if you heard me. I don't know if you heard me talk about that wonderful meeting with the wonderful printing, etc. Now, I will say there is a woman and she was beautiful. I don't know. She was an older white woman with the most beautiful raincoat in the world. It had flowers all over it. I would love to connect with her again. Because the truth is, so many people who are deeply entrenched in this are so deeply entrenched in capitalistic thought and the way things are supposed to work that they had no clue whatsoever what they're really sitting in, right? So we're there and this whole ugly thing happens. And again, the printing happens. I know people have been moved places. People have flown to conferences and other places. Like there are people from New Jersey up there. I don't know why we need people from New Jersey physically here. We got Zoom, but whatever, right? All of this stuff had to happen for all this stuff to happen. And this woman afterwards, she was like, what did you think about this? And I was at that point, I was shaking because I really was doing nothing other than thinking about the millions of dollars that our communities are not getting, right? Mm-hmm. And I just watched, again, Dog and Pony. It was scheduled for 2 hours. There was maybe an hour of it. It was a waste. It was a farce. And that was our money being spent. So we're there and I'm explaining to her why this hurt my soul and why I was morally offended. And that's really where it comes from, right? My soul is hurt and I'm morally offended because I love cannabis. I know how it brings us together. Joe, you and I have had this conversation forever. Right. And I'm watching nasty, small-minded, dumb capitalists use it to make money and hurt us. That's breaking my soul. So anyways, we're there and I'm laying this out. And someone says, hey, we've got a luncheon, let's go on over to Trumbull Kitchen. Okay, whatever, I hear it. But, I'm not a special person, so whatever. I go home. I get a phone call, Kimura, you're invited. Go to this. So I know that the social equity money on that day went to feed people at Trumbull Kitchen, which is part of the Max Group, which is an expensive and exclusive restaurant. I like going there. Please hear me. I enjoy eating at Max's, but not on the state dime. So when I talk about this woman who I was talking to, when I got over there, because like I said, I went home and then got the call. I was like, you know what? It's important to me to work. This is important. So while I don't let me get up off my butt, even though I'm happy to be home, let me go back down there. And I went down. And that woman was sitting there and she called me up. She's like, I need you to know that I have my own tab. I paid for everything I ate. I did drink the non-alcoholic iced tea that they offered for free. And she said all of this while looking me in the eyes and said, I need you to know this, right? And Louis, like, this is what we need to do. Because for some reason, racism, capitalism, all of this stuff, there's a lot of reasons why people who are good people, who are decision makers, believe that equity in cannabis is making sure that poor black people can sell a lot of weed.
Yeah. That's not
I
what it
need
is.
all of
It's
us.
about improving the community. Right.
And we have the right product, right? Like if we
Right.
had alcohol and all the taxes from alcohol to support my community, whatever. And this is where I morally become offended. If a whole bunch of people who like alcohol and enjoy making alcohol and celebrate with alcohol, if those people were playing these dumb capitalist games, whatever, I could roll my eyes. But this is weed. This is
Yeah.
my
We
community. These are
expect
the people
better,
who
right?
hold me. I expect better, and it hurts my soul to see, oh, dude, I thought you were one of, I thought,
Hmm.
and then I'll say cannabis warrior. I love the cannabis warriors, but I'm talking about cannabis warriors, right? Like, I thought you were one of those psychonauts. I thought you were one of those beautiful people who's bringing about world healing with all these wonderful, with your weed and your stuff. And now I realize you're just a damn drug dealer trying to get rich. That
Yeah.
hurts.
Yeah. You're not in it for the community. They're in it for the wrong reasons.
Because what a beautiful world where we can pay our bills, take care of our family so we don't have to worry, and heal people at the same time.
Yeah, and it's the whole mindset of being a cannabis user is not only are you more open to using cannabis for healing, but it opens your mind to using more natural medicines and living I find that for some reason once you become a member of the cannabis community and really understand what the plant is about, it opens you up to more natural ways and living better. I've seen so many people be like you with the gardening. Hey, your food supply you're more open to even hearing that. Do you know what I mean? Hey, we can use plant medicine to heal you. You don't have to go into the corrupt medical system. Hey, let's grow our own food. This food is better for you than what you get at wherever, Stop and Shop or whatever. I believe that all comes along with learning cannabis as medicine, not a drug, and as cannabis as a way to help the community and help people. That's the mindset that's missing up there.
Yeah. And I don't know because I think part of it, like I see it happen with teachers in professional space, right? And I see it happen in a few places. And there's a part of me that's really, I wonder, are these folks just not opening their mouths because they feel intimidated? Like the language of business does a really good job of making sure that anyone who doesn't speak the language of business knows that they're stupid and not qualified to enter the conversation, right? So we find a whole lot of people. I look at the nonprofit industrial complex and I watch, organizations that are supposed to
Yeah,
help
people don't
humans
get that. That's a whole
operate like
show.
businesses. Oh, it's a whole farce, right? But I'm wondering how much of the cannabis community has been co-opted in this crazy way where they're now trying to act like business people because they think that that's what we need to do rather than going in there with their crazy ass heal the world stuff and remind the assholes in suits of who they really are.
Yeah.
And I think so rather than us cosplaying as them, we need to understand that their humanity is locked up inside that suit. And I know I'm starting to sound like that weird hippie right now, but we need to show up there talking about love, talking about all of the
That's,
weird stuff,
yeah.
You're
talking
not a
about
weird hippie.
No, Kimura, that's my whole message. It's like we got to start spreading that message because right
And
now all we're getting is that message of division,
and I'll
capitalism.
Joe, you're right. Kimura is 100% right. And when I mean, and I blessings that I've had the opportunity to kind of step in that room and have that conversation, but the pure ass beating you get afterwards
yeah.
is tough.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I'm
not going to
and
tell
I'm
you.
full circle, and I can't wait to have some time to get and sit and talk with you. We've talked a couple times. And I'm telling you, the last 5 year cycle, everything that anybody is ever talking about the hypotheticals, please understand, I have 100% gone through it. Joe's heard every one of the
Yeah.
stories, and the conspiracies are right. I've went through it firsthand, and now it's time to be able to share that
Let's bring
as
it to
move through
light. Let's bring it to
because
light.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, and I'm hoping somebody like Josh can bring some change. I wanted to get to that with him, but Kamora, I want to have you on again. We are running out of time. Tell us a little bit about some events you got going on up there for the fall and how people can get in touch with you.
Okay, so this Friday, and I'll send it to this Friday is Trunk or Treat. So the Urban League does their big old Trunk or Treat. And again, I am me. So we give away very little in the way of candy. We give away light up rings. We give away, and I like light up stuff. So if you've got light up stuff, get it to us. We do have an Amazon wish list that I'll share with you, Joe. You can check out the Amazon wish
Do
list.
that.
That's
Share it on Facebook. I'll share it.
Yep. And then the other fun thing is we don't do Halloween because everyone else does Halloween and Halloween is on Friday, so there's going to be enough. But on the first, so on the what do you call it, Dia de los Muertos, we're going to have we're going to have a donut eating contest. So if anyone wants to come to 75 Sterling Street at about 5 o'clock at night, we're going to have apple cider. I always have apple cider in the cauldrons when it's cool out. So there'll be apple cider in the cauldrons. There'll be fires going and lots of apple cider donuts for an apple eating contest because we need to get together and be right now.
We do.
So on this one, and just like so much of our stuff, there is no cost associated with it. Will there be a couple of folks, some cannabis folks with wares? Possibly, but the idea is that we are with each other. So
that's it. I want to, that's a big deal. That hit me this weekend, the difference between living as a community or living as a society. Someday I'd love to get in with that, the difference between community and society and why we need to start
living. We saw a lot of
living.
society on Saturday, and we saw a lot of people who believe
there we go. Now we're getting there. We'll get.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
All right, Kamora, how do we get in touch with you? At Kamora's Cultural Corner?
Come find me, my website, www.kamorasculturalcorner.com. Find me there. Kamora's Cultural Corner also on Facebook and Instagram. Find us in those spaces. And when you are on there, sign up for the newsletter because there's so much going on in so many different lanes we're setting up a holiday store. Everyone does the stores where we give toys to kids. This year, I got a bunch of kids. They've got moms. Moms don't have dads. Guess what? Mom never gets a gift, and mom has to lie to her kid on Christmas morning and say, "Oh, I'm a mom. I don't want gifts." We're doing the store. So if you want to support us for Christmas, don't think about toys. Give me gifts that our children can come into my living room. They can go shopping and they can give their mother a present so their mom doesn't have to lie.
All right, I got to say goodbye. Harry, hit that music. Kamora, I love you. Join a community. That's my advice to everybody. Find a community.
Yes.
Kamora is a great one. Burn and Learn is a great one. There's a lot of great communities out there to get involved in. Like, share, subscribe. That's Joe the Weed Guy at Green Haven Media. We love you guys. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Metatron Homegrown.
Thank you so very, very much.
Love you, Kamora.